So this is the Samsung Galaxy S25 and it's been out for about a month now, and in this episode I want to talk about it in comparison to the iPhone 16 and which one is probably the better option to choose here between these two products. On Friday we will have the iPhone 16e, but that one is even well below the S25. This one might also be below it. Let's find out which is the better pick in this video. What is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and let's talk about the price and value ratio to begin with. First of all, while on the surface both of these do retail for right around that $799, $829 mark, the iPhone typically doesn't have any good discounts. You can do some trade-ins as well, but you'll have to do those in store. Usually though, you'll get bigger discounts in just in multiple places, whether it's carriers or also Samsung.com on the S25. So I think you're getting more for your money here, just straight up off the bat. You're going to pay more, whether you're trading in a nicer phone to get this phone. You know, you're still going to usually pay a little bit more for this 16. So from that perspective, the S25 to me is the one to choose if you're trying to save a little bit, especially if you take advantage of the rebates, the discounts, things of that sort. Now, I want to move on to talking about design and build, because this is where I do think the S25 is also taking the win here over the iPhone 16, mostly because it feels like a little bit easier to hold, like a little smaller, a little bit more thin on the edges. It just kind of feels a little sleeker than the iPhone 16, which feels nice. Don't get me wrong. It's also pretty thin, pretty light, but it just kind of feels a little bit wider, just a little bit to me. I don't know. This phone just feels a little bit smaller, even though it has a 6.2-inch display. So if you're looking for that more compact feeling size, I do think it's the S25. Also with the punch hole display, similarly thin bezels as the iPhone, it just looks a little bit more modern to me with that. Now turning it over to the back side, I do like how Apple did go to the vertical camera right here. It was definitely different from the diagonal setup. But over here you do have triple camera, and both of them are pretty clean in that respect. And they both have their logos on the rear. So they're both pretty similar from the back. Even the camera flashes are in the same location. On the whole, the back side is not a major issue on either for me. You'll see right here, I do like how the iPhone's a little cleaner. Samsung's got this up here. And on the left side, you're going to see we do have a 5G antenna there. Not on the iPhone. There is an action button right there on the iPhone. In addition, the iPhone does have this camera button on the right, where the Samsung does not. So definitely there are pros and cons to each, but generally speaking, you're not going to be able to go wrong either way here from a design and build perspective. I do think the Samsung's just a little sleeker, with the iPhone being a little bit more modern than previous like 15 and 14 in terms of the look, just because they changed up the camera, they bought the action button, they got the camera control button, it's all here. Now, when it comes to the display, the Samsung does have a nice display panel, don't get it twisted. However, this one is my least favorite of the S25 line because it is a 1080p. Now I understand it's on a smaller 6.2, but still the iPhone is actually going to win it to me in this one because it has a higher resolution in terms of the resolution. However, it's not going to win it in the fact that it has 60 hertz. So that is just super annoying on this phone. And for that reason, I do have to say, I would, if I had to pick the Samsung, I would pick the Samsung because of the 120 hertz. Although I do like the color reproduction and the sharpness of the iPhone a little bit more. The 120 hertz was what would make me take pause with the iPhone 16. But other than that, the lack of 120 hertz, other than that, I do think the iPhone is slightly better color reproduction and also has a little bit better when it comes to the sharpness. But this is really, really tight. It's very, very small. It's really going to be hardly even noticeable to anybody. So really what I think you'll notice is the 120 hertz versus the 60 hertz if you're even looking for it. So these are some of the closest displays out there in terms of competitiveness. I don't think either way you go, it's a major, major issue. But if you want the 6.2, the Samsung, if you look closely, is slightly larger display. Even though the phone kind of feels thinner and sleeker, it is slightly larger than that of the iPhone 16. So when it comes to the camera, the one I'm going to pick is probably the S25 here. And that's because it has a little bit more not a little bit, a lot more versatility than the iPhone 16. It has nearly most of the features you'll find on the Ultra line including things like Expert RAW, Pro Video, and more, dual record video. They also have it a little bit lower, so it's a little bit easier to use, and they do have log recording, and it's also a triple camera setup, which is closer to that of the iPhone 16 Pro. So I do think from a value perspective, this one is offering up better overall specs than the iPhone 16. However, some people are going to like the way the iPhone 16's reproduction of, the way the video looks, the photos look. They might actually enjoy it more. But for me personally, if I had to recommend one, I think the Samsung is just giving you more for your money with triple cameras and more features in there. So if we go into the camera here, also very simple, very easy to use. They are cropping in on that 48 megapixel sensor as they will do on the iPhone 16e. But if we go back it out ultra wide, you have an ultra wide camera, which is nice. And while this doesn't have a triple, what it does have is that, again, the ability to crop in. It maxes out at 10x zoom, which is okay for the average consumer. But if you want to go a little bit more, like you're at an event or something, you're sitting up in the nosebleeds, you want to zoom in, you got 30 times zoom on the Samsung, not on this one. 4K 60, the Samsung's capable of 8K recording. So iPhone's a great camera. Don't get it twisted. It's amazing. Pretty much. It's been for a long time. So is the front-facing camera. But I do think in this battle, Samsung's giving you more for your money here. So I just can't objectively say that, oh, just pick this one when it has less camera, less features, doesn't have 8K. I mean, doesn't have as much zoom. It's hard to say pick this one, like unless you just really, really like the way iPhone reproduces video and photo. It's pretty clear which one is giving you more for your money on the left. When it comes to the battery life, the iPhone actually, to me, performed better, even though it has a slightly smaller battery, like 3560, something like that. This is 4000. But the iPhone did, in fact, give me a little bit better length, but neither of these were really a major issue. And I do like the Samsung's power modes. I think they're a little bit more extensive on here. So let's go into settings. And then over here, you do have the traditional low power mode that we've been having for a long time. You can just enable it right here in Control Center if you like. That's pretty decent. It does kind of like make the phone a little slower and kind of takes back some of the features, but so would the battery modes over here. But Samsung does have a little bit more when it comes to what it offers in battery. Also, it does charge faster than the iPhone. So if you are looking for better charging speed, of course, you're going to want to go with the Samsung S25. And it also has reverse wireless charging, which is pretty neat. This phone just a little bit more basic, but just because it's kind of like I think a lighter software, it just kind of lasts a little bit longer to me. I will say though that the iPhone 16 charge is painfully slow compared to the competition. So you want to have this thing topped off or you're going to be waiting a while for this phone to charge versus like the S25, which also doesn't charge very fast either. The S25 Ultra and Plus charge faster than this one. But it's not painfully slow. It's just kind of slow. This one's really slow though on the iPhone 16. Both of them do have USB-C transfer, but there's a caveat. The USB on the iPhone is slower, even slower than the Pro models. The Samsung is pretty quick, so charging, transfer is going to be a little bit better on that S25 over there for sure. In addition, you'll see at the bottom we do have ourselves a SIM card. So if you want SIM card and eSIM support, you have dual options there on the Samsung, not so on the iPhone, which is forcing you to use the eSIM, which is super annoying. Now, which to choose in terms of the software, I'm pretty sure at this point, you've been watching videos a long time. You've probably been using these products a long time. You know what to expect from Samsung, more customizable, iOS a little bit more locked down. Both of them are just great software now. It just kind of really depends on what you want to do, what ecosystem you're in. However, I do have to say that from like a fun perspective, I think I have more fun on the Samsung device. Definitely. I'm a little bit more entertained by the numerous features and stuff of that sort. In addition to that, I am a little bit more entertained by its Expert RAW camera app and things like that. It's a little more fun to use for those kind of things. But where I like the iPhone is its simplicity. I just think it's easy. It's kind of like second nature. You just use it. There's not like a lot going on. It kind of just blends into the background. It feels more appliance-like in the day-to-day with the software over here. But if I really need some extra features and like split screen and stuff of that sort, I feel like I'm behind on the iPhone when I'm using it. I feel like, why am I not using my Samsung right now? There is a lot of times I feel like that. Whereas when I'm on the Samsung, I never really feel like, where's my iPhone? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing this phone does that really, besides iMessage, that is probably the thing. But In terms of the features on the phone itself, I'm never really like, where's my iPhone when I'm using Samsung? I'm just like, where's my Samsung when I'm using the iPhone? And I'm not trying to be biased to one side. I'm just saying the feature sets, you don't miss them from the iPhone when you're on the Samsung. You miss some of them when you're on the iPhone from the Samsung, unless you don't care about these things. And if you don't, iOS is, to me, a more simple operating system. It doesn't offer like an overbearing amount of features. It's pretty boring, if you will. But this one, you can go to town or you can leave it simple. It's really up to you. And the AI stuff is definitely ahead to me over here on the Samsung. Even though this stuff is still in its infancy, AI features, it's a little bit better over here on the S25 for sure. The audio eraser features are here. You got photo assist. This stuff is definitely not the now brief now here. It's definitely a little bit more polished, I feel like, than Apple's Apple Intelligence, which is okay. It works well, but it's not like the best out there. It's still very beta right now. So I will say, from the software perspective, it's still down to your personal preference. But you are getting a lot more for your money in terms of features on the Samsung. Over here, you're getting more for your money if you like minimalist. You like to kind of keep everything in sync. The ecosystem, I think, is still very, very strong, as Apple tightly controls it better than pretty much anyone out there in terms of owning the software and the hardware for all of their products. So when it comes to the performance, this iPhone is actually clocked very high, like over 4 gigahertz A18, and it will benchmark better in the single core than the Samsung. And day to day, it does do pretty well. But because of the 60 hertz and the way iOS's animations are set up, the phone itself kind of runs along a little bit slower feeling by comparison. So if you like to navigate your phone in a more relaxed manner, I think you'll love the iPhone experience. But if you like a speedy affair, you're going to like the Samsung. Samsung is more of a balance between speed, performance, animations, a little bit relaxed, but not very relaxed. It's pretty fast. So I feel like every time I'm using my S25, you can go ahead and feel that speed bump over the iPhone. The apps are pretty polished on the iPhone though, so a lot of developers still focus a lot of their efforts on iOS because they know there's millions and millions of users on there, more likely to earn some revenue from their efforts on the iPhone. However, the Samsung, if you are going to be picking this one up, you are going to notice that 12 gigs of RAM allows you to have multiple applications open in the background, while also allowing you to go ahead and make split screen, and pretty easy affair for this phone. I mean, it's really, nothing really stresses this phone too much. I haven't had any major issues, but if I do run a game heavily, I can feel it get a little warm by comparison to something like the Ultra, but it's not a big deal. Overall, this thing is a powerhouse in your pocket, the S25, as is the iPhone 16, but they need a 120 hertz to really push this to the next level. They really do on the 16. That's the main thing I keep noticing. There are some brands that actually allow you to change between different animation styles. I think that would be nice if Apple would give you like an option to have fast animations, slow animations, because theirs are pretty relaxed and slow. It would be nice to give the user an option, but that's not typically something we see from Apple, so I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, I would choose the Samsung if you're looking for better like 5G connectivity. This thing has been holding better signal strength than my iPhone, and the iPhone is much improved, don't get it wrong, over like previous versions I've had, but it just doesn't hold up like the iPhone, like the Galaxy S25 over here. I just feel like I get more strength. It's like a little bit more reliable. But this one, it gets okay signal strength, but you can see I don't even have the SIM in there right now because it's in the max. I have tested this multiple times though, and I find that these phones tend to perform better on the Samsung. It's still that way to this day. So that's just something to keep in mind as a phone itself. If you still even use that, a lot of people don't, but if you do use it mainly as a phone experience, this is probably your better pick. Now, when it comes to the iPhone storage configurations, you can get this up to 512 gigabytes, and it's going to cost you a pretty penny more. However, it is NVMe storage, so it's pretty fast when it comes to like storing files and photos and stuff. It's pretty good stuff on here, but you're paying significantly more for more storage. A lot of times Samsung is throwing in the 512 gig at the price of the 256 gig, etc. So you are usually going to get, again, another better value when it comes to storage on the Samsung. It's also pretty fast storage as well on here. Samsung does make, SSD drives, SD cards, so they know how to do storage as well. It's not like Apple's way ahead here in that department or anything like that. So I would say when it comes to storage options and expandability, I do like the Samsung option. It's a little bit cheaper. It's also pretty easy to transfer files via the Files app. Over here on the iPhone, it is a little bit annoying when transferring things, but because the way the Apple Files app is laid out, it just feels like if you're going to be having everything in iCloud, it's a little bit better here. You're going to be doing a lot of airdropping. It's a little bit better. I just don't like how I have to pay way more for the storage here on my iPhone. So we have DeX over here. We have emergency SOS features on both, with satellite texting on both, but harder to use on the Samsung, easier to use here on the iPhone. Dynamic Island. We have the Now Bar options. These things are neck and neck. They really are. You also have Samsung DeX on here, which is not available over here. You can beam this to a monitor. It will show the iPhone. You can also sync this up with a Mac, which is pretty awesome, but that's a little bit laggy. I've been trying it out. The Samsung DeX feature is sick by comparison to this. At the end of the day, for the price and the value for the money, if I was to pick one, I'm going to Samsung here. As you probably noticed throughout this video, it's not because I like Samsung more than Apple. It's because I like what I'm getting for the money more on this particular model versus this one. I'm not super happy about 1080p. I wish this was a 2K display because I think some of the older base S lines were 2Ks, but I can understand for the battery reasons why they might go there, or also cost savings. I also don't like how Samsung doesn't have expandable memory anymore, like a SD card slot, so they don't get all the credit here. And I don't like how the regular S25 gets these like less nicer cameras than the S25 Ultra. So this thing ain't perfect either. It's got some things it needs to work on too, to really impress me. But this one I just feel like is behind, mostly because 60 Hertz panel is the main reason. This phone also doesn't have like really fast kind of feel, mostly because of that. That's mainly the main issue for me here. I wish that Apple would also give us maybe 3 cameras on this phone. That would be pretty nice. They can go like 4 cameras on the Max, go like 3 on these base models. That would be pretty sweet. So let's wrap it up here. Which would you choose? That's what I want to know down below in the comments section. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to be well, and peace.